Hi, everybody. My name is Reverend Donna Seraphina. I am a Spiritualist Reverend and a psychic medium. On June 15th, 2021, a little 5-year-old girl went missing. Her parents called her in as a missing person hours after she allegedly went missing. I put up a couple of readings early on, just weeks after. Those readings were really focused on where somebody could find surveillance camera, but I see that the right people did not want to listen to me. So I moved on to other families who are asking for my help. It's been 4 years since anybody saw Summer Wells alive. This little 5-year-old girl who was so severely abused and who had zero chance of being able to have her life. She didn't have control, and the people around her made decisions that led to what occurred and to the outcome that we have today. I want to go through a couple things due to the fact that there's a lot to the crime of the disappearance of Summer Wells. There's multiple sections. So if you're listening to the clues, you may not know where to apply the clues. And you may not, I think it would help if you were one of the people out there who is trying to understand these readings. I think it would help if you understood the complexity of this crime. So I'm just going to go over something I have written down. There's multiple parts to this crime, and there's multiple parts to my readings where I'm talking about the multiple parts to the crime, okay? And remembering that the psychic visions, it's not like watching television. It's not like Skype. It's not a computer database that you just say, I want this, I want that. What it is, and you all could learn to do this if you chose, is you wake up your energy field, you expand your consciousness, you invite spirit, you connect with spirit, and then it's a mind transfer with spirit. And the mind transfer, because the spirit person doesn't have a voice box, comes mostly in visions. And interpreting those visions is actually where somebody could be wrong, including myself. So I see what I see, but did I interpret it right? Who knows? And if they show me something like there's basic aspects that appear in every single reading I've looked at, these are the water wheel, the train tracks. Now, when I say train, bridge, I'm just telling you there's going to be something related. It could be like you see by Amos Mill, there's a broken down train bridge that the bridge doesn't go across anymore, but it comes part way and they left the pillars there. That would qualify for that clue. I looked at that and I'm like, well, that would qualify, no problem for that clue. Okay. Ivy. There's train bridge, ivy, these water wheels, those are all nearby. Now, when you look at, say, the water wheel, it could be a fixture in someone's yard. It could be an old broken down water mill that some, personal farmer had to use, and it's all broken down, but that serves as a landmark to where her remains are. It could be the big fancy restaurant. I can't tell you the answer to that. I can only give you the clues. Now, when you're looking at something, you can take that same set of clues that I have and you can apply them anywhere, right? Almost you could go to all these different places and you could find these aspects. In my work, it would be most beneficial if I could go to these places in person. Now, I don't want to go to Tennessee because I would be terrified. I would literally need 6 people that are on the level of Navy SEALs to accompany me. And after you hear this latest reading, you'll understand why. But before we get to that, see, I wrote this thing and I want to tell you that there's multiple aspects to this crime. So we have Summer's life prior to her disappearance and everything that was occurring to her, all the crimes that were occurring against this little child prior to her disappearance. I don't think it's necessary to repeat it because even when I said it a long time ago, it came trickling out and there's enough evidence there that has validated what I've said. I don't need to repeat it anymore. Therefore, in any future videos, I will cut it out simply because of the subject matter is so disgusting, and I don't know where it would be appropriate to be shown, certainly not on this platform. So a significant part of every reading will include that. Part of the reason I haven't just thrown the readings up is, one, I'm learning as I go along as well. I never planned on having a YouTube channel, and I've never planned on hurting or traumatizing anybody. I've only been focused on trying to stop serial killers and stop child murderers and etc. Okay, so I can do that. It's just, how do I do that? That's a lot of work to go through an entire thing and edit out every horrible thing that has happened to this child prior to her disappearance. So when I say one sentence, I'm backing it up. I'm backing it up on a lot more than I have publicly disclosed, okay? I could make it public, though, if I was triggered to do that. Okay, so let's see. And then you have the section where a decision's made. All right. So then there's evidence that goes to that whole thing where it was planned and decided and etc. So that's two parts. Then you get to the showing, right? The showing of this little child. And even if you want to give the parents the benefit of the doubt, look at all the clues still. And there was a man following Summer around in what we now know as Gatlinburg and Wonderworks. And he was taking photos, and he was about 20 feet behind her. And if someone had there was a strong clues that led us to Ripley's museum, strong. For instance, the zigzag gum chain. There was, at that time that Summer was there was the world's longest gum chain on display, et cetera, et cetera. So there was like clues like that. And this was all about the showing. And this was all about, if I had been able to get law enforcement to listen to me, they could have actually solved this. They could have went and got the surveillance camera from these locations I described. It would have been very easy to do, and they would have had their hands on a high-level human trafficker in Tennessee. But they chose not to. Okay. So we have the showing. So when you're like, oh, she has all these clues and they're all over. No. It's real simple. Summer's life being abused prior to them getting rid of her. A decision made to get rid of her, and arrangements and different people that helped with that. The showing of Summer. The transfer of Summer, which is when happened near a barn, in front of a barn, or pulled into a barn. They even could have went to one barn, transferred her to a different person, and went to the other barn. But now we have Fred Hill, who has identified two of the locations from my readings as the most likely places where this occurred. Okay? So we have Summer's life of abuse prior to being gotten rid of. The decision made to get rid of her. The showing of her like a dog. Can you imagine someone who doesn't even care about their own child? Can you imagine? Can you imagine willingly putting your own child through? If you heard what some of these readings say, look, I'm sparing you guys the details. I'm sparing you the details. Because when I first started this channel, really, it was actually about my daughter, not about anything else. And When Tylee appeared in my living room, I didn't know anybody was going to listen to it other than the police and the searchers. I had no idea. So Spirit did, I'm sure, but not me. Okay, so anyways, let's see. So we've got the transfer, and Fred Hill has helped immensely with that. Fred Hill is somebody who helped the police, and the police wanted Andy Bernard recorded. And someone hanging around with Andy Bernard is really panicking about the fact that I'm talking to Fred Hill, which is a little suspicious on its own to me. But we have the transfer. Now, did the transfer happen at one barn or both barns? Did one person turn over Summer at the first barn and then they go to the second barn for some more traffickers? I'm not sure. But I know a barn was involved in the transfer, and Fred has identified 2 barns that fit that. See, one thing I told Fred was in a reading I didn't upload, and I don't know if it's in any of the other ones. See, the readings get more and more detailed as time goes on. But when I told Fred about this hunchback guy and I described him, he knew right. He right away, he goes, "Oh, that sounds like Doug Gott. That's Doug Gott." And I said, I felt like he's more like a periphery worker bee character, but he was present. But the reason they're showing him to me is because to identify the barn, the location, which boom, Fred did. And then every time when I would have a thought that Fred is going to be key to solving this or helping me with my readings, I would get chills on my legs. So I think Fred is a really important person. I think he should be treated with respect. I don't care about his past. I really could care less. Everyone's got a past. Okay? Including Andy Bernard. So, all of them, everyone. Okay, let's see. He's clean now, though, and he looks good. Look in my post if you want to see what's occurring there. Okay, so that's already, we have 4 to 5 different places where I'm giving clues. And that's the problem with me just uploading the individual clues. But I have the conundrum of so much of it is this abuse of Summer, and not only by her parents, but then by total strangers and others, that it's like, if you cut it all out, what's left? And then, so I give you these chopped up pieces, but people are like scrambling and they think every single thing might have to do with where her remains were put or this or that or the other. That's not the way it works. So I have to explain this to you. After the transfer, then Summer arrived at a location. I'm not sure if that location is what I would call the cottage in the woods, which is an actual torture chamber, which hopefully the police will come across this. This is where they put her in the wooden box. Okay. They called her the package. And this is a shipping box they put her in. Okay. So she was going to be shipped. That was the plan. I assume they must put them to a new area or something by seeing this. But this is where, this is this destination she arrives at. At that point, she was still too drugged to resist much, from what I saw. But they additionally put something in her mouth and over her head tight, so she couldn't physically scream even. Yeah, that's what happened to this child that these Jerry Springer YouTubers are making an absolute joke. And if you look into them, they're almost all sex offenders. Every one of these people ridiculing YouTubers who are actually trying to make a difference are almost all sex offenders, and they are all criminals. I think they all are. And it's become clear that someone I platformed had an agenda. And I'm not going to go further than that. You can read my post. I don't really like the kind of drama. I'm going to focus on this. And it's not my responsibility to provide clues for Ryan to pretend that his wife is finding clues. Like, it's not mine. No. Okay, no. Anyway, So we have Summer's early life or Summer being abused. We have clues about the decision made. We have clues about the showing in Gatlinburg and Wonderworks and that whole area up there. We have the first transfer, possible second transfer, not sure if I'm talking about the same place there, but as I listen to more readings, it'll become clear. Then when Summer arrives somewhere, there's 3 building locations outside of her home, I think, that I described besides the showing. Here, this is where people have more privacy. I call it a cottage in the woods, and it's an actual torture chamber. I'm not sure if that's where she was, where they put her in the packaging box. I'm not sure. Okay, but they put her in a wooden box, a shipping box. That was the plan. So they put her there, and then she's taken to the lodge. You can surmise what you want, but the word is the lodge. Okay? And they dress her in a little green dress and some Mary Jane shoes, which you're going to hear in the reading. And that's very symbolic, and the color matters. The color matters a lot. For groups that are into SRA, symbolism is everything. So there's clues about that building. And then there's this clues about the brick house. So we've got multiple locations that are in my readings. And that's why if I just upload the little clips, you become confused. So, and then there's the remains. Okay. So we have Summer's life being abused, a decision made to get rid of her, the showing of her to the traffickers where they can take photos and put her in a catalog so people can see if they want her or not. Then we have the transfer, which could be 1 or 2 places. Then we have where Summer arrived first, and it's going to take me listening to a few more of these readings to see if that place was what I would call the cottage in the woods, the torture chamber. I'm not sure if that happened just at someone's house, and then I'm talking about this cottage in the woods later, because I've listened to, I haven't listened to any. What I did was I dropped them into the talk to text. That's easier for me. I don't have to see it all again, and I can just scan them. But I am referring to a place I call the cottage in the woods, and that's a torture chamber. And I'm not sure if that's a place she was put into the wooden box, but it was where she first arrived. When the traffickers had her, she first arrives, and she's put in this wooden box, okay? And she's still drugged, but they put more stuff where even if she tried to scream, she physically could not. This is what they did to a 5-year-old. These people are sick. They need to be caught, and they need to be put on trial, and they need the death penalty. Okay. So we got the cottage in the woods, then we get the lodge. So one night, this is a night where she is brutally assaulted, probably by multiple people. And I'm describing multiple people on some of these things too. So, and then there's the brick house, and we all know what happened there. Okay. And then there's the location of the remains. So if you're hearing a clue and then you're applying that to the showing or the cottage in the woods, or if you're applying the clues from the showing to the death location, yeah, you're going to have a problem. So let me go over this one more time. There's Summer's life being abused. There's a decision made to get rid of her. There's a showing up there by Gatlinburg and Wonderworks. There's the transfer, which may involve more than one place or could just have involved, but in front of the barns. And Fred has helped, and we have identified those 2 barns. Then we have where Summer arrived first, where she was put in the box. Okay. Then we have her taken to the lodge, dressed in a little green dress. Green. It matters. It matters. Everything matters. Then we have the brick house and the clues related to that. Then we have where her remains were put and the clues related to that. There are multiple suspects, multiple people that I described. Multiple people assaulted her from the time she was taken from her home till her death, which looks to me like she was alive. I'm guessing they would have done this on the 21st because just that's a human sacrifice day for satanic ritual. Okay, and then let's get into the issue of the Masons, because I'm wondering if groups like the Hells Angels are being called RICO, and if one member does something, then other members that have nothing to do with it can be put on trial as it being a gang or something like that. Are the Freemasons under RICO as well? I want you to think about that today while you're listening to a few clips, because literally I'm cutting out the horror. This child suffered from the time she was born. And what I also want to tell you is that women can be so too. Not just men. Not just the father. But the mother. In their own right. I worked in an institution that was 12 to 18-year-olds. And there was plenty of females in there. Probably about a third of them were in there for child R. And they look pretty normal for the most part. You wouldn't be able to spot them. And the boys, and when I went out to juvenile parole and monitored SOs in the community, one thing I did find surprising was how normal most of them look and how they are in every single socioeconomic group. At the fanciest schools and at the poorest schools, right across the board. And when you least expect it, you might find out on my caseload that there's a woman, a mother in a family that's actually the leader. So I'm not saying about Summer Wells. I'm just saying about my work experience. There was a little 5-year-old girl. Her parents took her to live semi-remote, kind of little mountain area. And she didn't have a chance, not from the day she was born. And one thing really bothering me still, if you heard my last video that I uploaded, when I was in deep trance and I was seeing my daughter, and Summer came in and Summer was with my daughter was also holding a newborn baby next to Summer. That it's still bothering me. Somebody who cares, if anybody does, needs to, this whole, I gave him for adoption. But then they say, before Dawn Wells even got to the hospital, the baby was gone, or whatever excuse they made. I'd like to know if that baby's alive, and I think law enforcement should follow up on that. Because there's no reason that Summer would come in with a newborn baby like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So there's about 10 different things that when you hear clues from me, there's about 10 different possibilities of what they apply to. So let me just go through those real quick for you. We have clues related to the abuse that Summer suffered in her home. Most of those, after my first couple of readings, I'm cutting that out just because it's so graphic and so horrific that what do you do with it? Once I cut that out. Okay, so then there's clues related to the decision to get rid of her. Literal clues about that and setting that up. The third thing is then you have clues that point to Wonderworks and Gatlinburg. That's the showing of Summer for some sort of catalog for SOs, traffickers, etc. Right? So they wanted photos of that, It's all part of it. Now, one thing about that is if it was just a local person that was at that level of professional human trafficker, there's plenty of places they could have went real close by where they could have got pictures that were just fine, right? But for some reason, they want to go, a little further from the house and take pictures of her running around the theme parks and things like that. Is that because they only wanted those kind of pictures, or is that because the ring is run out of one of the towns up that way? I don't know the answer. I really don't know the answer. The next thing you have is the transfer. So you have Summer's early life, the decision to get rid of her, the showing of Summer, the transfer of Summer. And Fred Hill has helped me immensely. We've gotten very far because when I described the place and the person, he was able to narrow it down to 2 places. He was able to narrow it down to a specific barn that lived across, that the barn is across the street from John Smith, now deceased. And the hunchback that I described to him, he identified as most likely to be Doug Gott, also now deceased. There's a couple other possibilities, but I don't want to talk about them because we're not 100% sure, and it is most likely Doug Gott. Now, this isn't 100% sure on that, though. Okay, so, and Doug Gott would then be one more lower level person that is ended up dead around this, which is fine. But they need to get to the traffickers because they're taking little kids everywhere. And some of these women, they purposely have birth at home, so there is no birth certificate, so they can sell the baby for these SRA rituals. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I mean, if you're a woman and you've had a baby, I think almost all of us have felt intense love and intense desire to protect that baby. Some don't. Okay. So we have Summer's early life, the decision made, the showing, the transfer, which could be 1 or 2 places. Then where Summer arrived first. I'm not sure yet because I have to look through a few more readings. There's one place I'm describing and I call it a cottage in the woods. And I say it's an actual torture chamber, the cottage in the woods. So I don't know if that's where they filmed the final thing, or I'm not sure yet because I'm just beginning now to realize that I probably have 30 readings on Summer Wells alone. Like, my process of doing the deep trance is I just go lay on my bed and pray until I fall asleep. And then sometimes if I think there might be something, I've looked. But I'm usually had so many people asking for my help that, I put a couple things up to see if any law enforcement or I hear any reaction. Some people keep asking me about Jack and Lily. I put a couple things up. I have no idea if they're even listening or they're searching. I've written to the RCMP twice. I have no idea if they went the places I even said. So, Anyway, we have where Summer arrived first, and she was still sedated. So she was drugged for sure for this transfer. She was too drugged to be able to resist, and they still put some thing over her head and something in her mouth where she wouldn't be able to scream even physically if she wanted to. Okay? This is the level of people we're talking about. Some very sick individuals that would do this to any child. And then she's brought to a lodge. Okay? A lodge. Is that a Freemasonic lodge? Is that the Eastman Lodge? I don't know. You decide. In what I'm going to show you today is quite a bit of symbolism that indicates SRA. And again, I'm going to ask, are the Freemasons in America under the same RICO? And if not, why not? Is it because they're your cops? your law enforcement, your sheriffs, your surgeons, your politicians, your businessmen, your wealthy people, because you have to be invited into the upper echelons if they feel like you're enough of a sociopath to go all the way with them. Because these people sure as heck should be under RICO, where if they're a part of that group, they're responsible for everything that group does. And if they're not, there's no excuse. None. In this case, you're going to hear about how they dressed her in a little green dress. But the symbolism that comes before it sounds pretty Masonic to me. And look, first they show me a Game of Thrones. Why? I don't know. So I asked artificial intelligence. Well, in the Game of Thrones, they said that's most likely to the familial aspect of getting rid of her. Then they show me knights. So they're showing me all kinds of these. Wow. And then so I look up on AI about what's that about. It says, if they have knights in their name, they're likely Masonic from the York Rite Grand Commandery Knights Templar of Tennessee. And in Johnson City, they have the Knight Masons whose color is green. Oh, but they won't ever go to jail. They will never go to jail. They will never get arrested. How they make sure of that is to gain entry. You commit these acts yourself. And they're videotaping the whole thing. And like I said, these aren't your local bums in these groups. And I don't know if it's that group. I have no idea. But it's pretty weird, don't you think? And I really want somebody who's into law to answer this. How the hell do you think when these people are raping and killing our children and drinking their blood, quite frankly, are they not under RICO? I don't know if you've ever heard of the Royal Order of the Jesters. I guess there's 22,000 members in Tennessee. They have the highest secrecy ever. They're even worse than the other ones. And they include law enforcement, medical professionals, surgeons, doctors, psychologists, business people. Yeah, that's where it is. We can't think that we're going to have any of these ones arrested. When you look at the sheriff in that town whose son was hiding behind a church and SOing children and then got sentenced to 20 years, but Daddy, Sheriff Lawson, got him switched to Daddy's jail and then a month later released him. Right? Is that the story? Am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But that's what I heard. And what I see in Tennessee, if anybody in Tennessee is watching, is a whole lot of SOs hiding behind churches there. And they're looking for single moms who are trying to work and don't have time to take care of their kids. They're looking for them. Oh, they're going to offer you a free week-long retreat, you low-income mama. Yeah, and they're going to take care of your child for you. Just ask the Lawsons. And you know what someone told me the other day? I'd like someone to look into this because I don't know if this is true. I don't even know if that's true about Sheriff Lawson. Why don't you look into it and let me know? One, TBI and the FBI should have took this case away from these local law enforcement long time ago. If you are a low-income mother in Tennessee, one, I would think you would move because you are in the hub of child trafficking. You are in the hub. You are basically in the feeding area for Washington, D.C. Because in my reading, someone even came in on a helicopter for that ritual. Yeah, that was pretty hot, up and mighty, right? That was all high and mighty. Not these losers over on Van Hill Road, which Incidentally, has anyone even looked up to see all the SOs in that area? Like, what the heck? What the heck? And I'm only calling them losers. I'm specifically referring to the people among them that would hurt a child. Yeah, a despicable loser who's going to go back to the sludge of the astral plane or to hell where you belong. Because hell is real. And what they do in hell is you relive what you do is you relive, but you feel the pain. Any of the pain that was spread around, and you feel it nonstop 24/7. And why they do that, the demons that assist with that, it's their job. Okay. And the second you try to block them out, they will all go stronger at once. And the trauma energy that is put off is their sustenance. I know that from people, including my daughter, explaining that to me from the spirit world. And then I confirmed it by interviewing other entities on that issue. This is real. This is very real. The people that do that, they're going to pay when they go to the other side. But while they're on this side, they need to be locked up. And if people, we watch these things. You could go on there, look up this subject of trafficking, child trafficking, and you're going to see interviews by adult women who were trafficked while they were children. And they will talk about having to watch other children be, done away with. They'll talk about it. That's part of the fear that they ingrained in the trauma state that they want to keep those kids in so that they're compliant. Well, Summer is the face of one of them. Summer is the face of the faceless. She really is. It's the first child I know who was deleted, but who offers a glimpse into this entire thing. I think it's infuriating. And maybe that's why I get so angry. I did get real angry at somebody that tried to turn over our live stream to try to prevent the truth from coming out. Think about that. And I want to thank Fred Hill for helping me to identify Doug Gott and the barn across from Job Smith and the barn over on Stardust. Okay? We gotcha. We gotcha. All right. Moving on. I feel sick to my stomach even talking about this. Okay. So as you can see, so now what I've put so far into, I don't know that I've put all of them. I put a bunch from the starting when I started doing the readings a week after Summer died. And you know what, by the way, is really, I think, ironically not funny, but funny in a weird way. Once in a while, some so-called psychic or whatever will come over to my page. They'll see something I put up now. They'll try to barf back my own work and then call me some kind of names that I'm only just new to the thing. And they're going to tell me what to do. And then they try to tell me my own stuff. I'm just like, delete. I just delete it. I can't waste my time on stuff like that. Anyway. Yeah, these are really graphic. Like, what are you going to do with it? Person with curly hair, R, her, Summer, R, by multiple people. It's just a horrible, horrible thing that happened to her. And, she was abused since she was born, and she was horribly abused. And I believe that she would have lived long enough to be taken to these different places. And I believe there was more than one movie made of her. Like, there was a movie made of her with the green dress, which I believe was at the lodge. And that was a horrible movie too. And then there was the final movie. So, I'm just sick. This just makes me sick. I'm going to take a few clips out of this reading. Just know that there's a ton about Don and Candus. There's a ton about all these other things. And if you hear one person's description and you go, well, she said it was this, there's a bunch of people involved, okay? A whole string of people are involved. Maybe I would make one video one time and go, here's all the different descriptions of these different people that hurt her, that were willing to hurt a child. I would stand in front of someone willing to hurt a child. And that's what I'm attempting to do right now. I'm asking you for your support. I'm asking for you to support this channel. You can do that by becoming a member, or I'll put some links in the description box how you can support. We have a nonprofit, and what my goal is to be able to, when something like this happens, and if it appears that the law enforcement is not going to have the leads, a lot of times I'll see something and I'll be like, you know, they're going to find her within 2 days or whatever. Like, I already have a feeling. But on cases like this, it would have been really good for me to be able to go to Tennessee prior to everybody recognizing me and knowing who I am. If you look in the case of Lori Vallow, half the readings, more than half, I keep saying, this trapper's walking through. He's not a hunter, he's a trapper. Well, the next street up from where the children were buried was called Trapper Lane. So it's like that. And with your support, I can make a difference. My only child was murdered. Yes, Ryan, my only child was murdered. And you chose Thanksgiving Eve to act like a butthole, because that's what you are. You exposed your true colors. So anyway, yeah, her body, my daughter, that this Ryan chose to spend Thanksgiving Eve when they found her body on Thanksgiving, because she went to go meet her ex, who incidentally, that was their anniversary. So that's what he gave us back for her anniversary. And there were witnesses, and she had bruises all over the backs of her hands. This, I'm talking about my daughter. Bruises all over her chest, bruises on her back, bruises on her face, bruises here, and bruises all over in her thighs where she was raped. So thank you, Ryan, for reminding me of that on Thanksgiving Eve. And then her best friend committed suicide later on the anniversary of her death. So, wow, way to bring a tragedy forward to show just what kind of person you really are. Brian, Ryan, what the fuck ever your name really is. That's backstabbing. These other clowns, they don't owe me anything. They're just a bunch of clowns. But this guy, I platformed this guy. He had like 3,000 subscribers. I promoted him for several months. I spent hours talking to him on the phone. And he has my phone number still. So if he really had questions, all he would have had to do was call or text. That wasn't the issue. He wanted to defame me for talking to Fred Hill. Why does he care so much about controlling a narrative? And especially a false narrative. Why does he care so much that he would spend 2 hours on the eve of Thanksgiving lying about me? After I literally platformed him, and half the people on his channel were sent over there from my channel. Why? I know his history about trying to upend things, but that was a pretty low blow. And I'm definitely inviting him to never listen to my readings again, to never talk about me again, and to never follow my clues again. Okay? Because when I first talked to him for several times, and then after about a month or so or two, I noticed he was going for walks on trails with his wife, pretending to look for Summer. And I said, why are you looking on trails? Because Summer's not on a trail. And I also noticed he would try to get clues from me and then try to, on his videos, attribute them to his wife, which I thought was a little weird, but I was just like, whatever, good for them, bye-bye. And so I kind of separated myself. And then I noticed he all of a sudden had a video with Andy Bernard top suspect by the police that the police wanted recorded related to the transfer of Summer Wells. I'm not accusing Andy Bernard of anything. That's just what Fred said that the police wanted him recorded. And that's who he recorded, was Andy Bernard. So Ryan then makes a video with Andy Bernard. Then he makes another video with Andy Bernard. I'm like, are you working for the police? Are you recording him? What's going on here? And then allegedly Andy was going to, and Ryan were going to go film Andy's parents' property. And they could have even went on it, right? Because it's Andy's. Instead, they filmed the other direction than the property. So that was a purposeful misleading of his entire subscriber base. And then they go to a utility road and pretend they're at Andy's parents' property or something like that. I mean, it was so stupid. I never watched him again. It's like, well, he's gone. He's gone. Whatever's going on now is not kosher at all. But I didn't say anything publicly. I didn't smear him. I didn't warn people. I didn't defame him. I just moved on with my life, focusing on who I could help. And then he literally takes information that wasn't even legitimate from a person that's known to not be legitimate and repeats it as fact. And what I have to say is that people like that with baby faces, oh, hi, I'm Mr. Innocent, I'm right. Donna, there's so many red flags. Yeah, she's talking to Fred, you guys. You can't trust her anymore. That's what he was doing for 2 whole hours. This is the fact. I used to be an activist, okay? I am a psychic medium, and what I used to do is write a blog, and I would expose things that I thought were corrupt in the government and with the police departments. Yeah, and that was the big get even. All right. And my daughter did have her baby die the year before, so that was horrible for her, and she went and sought treatment for the depression that came with that. But I recorded the coroner saying there's absolutely nothing in the death scene that indicates suicide. And then I saw someone mention the surveillance camera. Yeah, you would think. But where that hotel was like this valley that formed like a wind tunnel, and all those surveillance cameras were pointing the other way. No, now it could be that criminals did that. I don't know. That's a long story short. But there were a whole row of homeless people in tents behind the motel, because I went up there with the audio recorder in my bra, and I spent almost 8 hours talking to them. I mean, I was so dirty when I came out there, and it was just a day or two after. They're saying my daughter was there, and it was like 5 days. They left her in the water so long, and then they said, oh, she was in the water too long. We couldn't do a rape kit. Really? Well, then why didn't you pull her out of the water? Or even better yet, why the cop that happened to be 2 minutes away didn't let the EMT come in, who were there within 4 minutes, pull her out. They wanted to pull her out. They weren't convinced she was dead. The cop wouldn't let him. The cop stood there and refused to let the EMTs grab my daughter out of the pool. What's that about? You want her to die? That cop refuses to talk without a lawyer. Yeah. And then the rest of them, because it was Thanksgiving, sat there, didn't show up for 7 more hours. They just let her body in the pool. Either way, then they said her body was so bloated from the water that they couldn't do a rape kit. So we don't even really know if she died in that water and was moved. We don't even know. But anyways, yeah, they couldn't do a rape kit. I said, well, did you scrape her fingernails? And it's like, oh, no. We didn't scrape her fingernails. We didn't do anything. They did nothing. Nothing. Not a fucking thing. Okay? Now, what you should know is that even if the cops say something is a murder, half the time they don't ever even prosecute. Sometimes it goes up to as much as 4 out of 5 murders are never prosecuted. Another thing you should know is that the Department of Justice gives grants based on closed cases. So if you're not sure if you're going to have evidence, you could close a case by calling it an accident or calling it suicide or whatever. So based on the fact that 3 months before that, she went to a psychiatrist, they're just going to, oh, that's a suicide, when there's like multiple actual human witnesses to her screaming her head off. And then the guy told me it was like this just massive screaming match between a man and a woman. And he identified that woman as my daughter because he actually worked as a handyman for the hotel. So he had talked to her. And he's on the playlist on my page. Like, if Ryan wanted to know that, he could have just looked. And he probably did. But he actually got his information from a known criminal, a known sex offender, and presented it to you as fact. It's pretty low. That's really low. I want to say one more thing. 35,000 people or more every year in America are murdered. Those are the ones that they don't write off as accidents and suicide, which is probably another 35,000 if you want to be honest. Maybe 5 to 10 of them get to be high profile cases. And all of you watching, oh, Gabby Petito's mom. Which I love Gabby Petito because when I did the readings with her effervescence, kind of like champagne, just real light and sweet. And that reminded me a lot of my own daughter. Okay, so I'm not knocking Gabby. I'm just saying most mothers that have a child die deal with it on their own. They are alone and nobody's helping them at all. It's just something to put out there. Mm-hmm. Also, most prosecutors' offices don't even have it in their budget to prosecute all the murderers. I have a recording from when my brother was shot in the chest, which some sex offender here that seems obsessed with me and wants to make movies about me every day. He says I don't really have a brother murder, but if you go, there's a playlist about it. My brother, Steve, was shot in the heart. Okay? He was shot in the heart. I have a recording of the prosecutor's office actually saying that they only had in their budget to prosecute 1 to 2 murders a month, and they had to prosecute the 1 or 2 most likely to get a conviction. So they knew he was murdered, but it's like, oh, gee, golly guy, because these cops are worthless. The government is worthless. The prosecutors are worthless. The coroners are worthless. My brother was murdered on December 28th of 1991, 3 days after Christmas. Well, the normal coroner for Spokane, Washington, happened to be on their vacation. Oh gosh, we got a dead body. So they call in this guy that's retired that literally has dementia in his 80s, who screwed up the entire autopsy. I'm totally serious. So they caught the guy. They knew he did that, et cetera, et cetera. I sued him and he, that went through because think about this too. Some people don't know this. On a civil lawsuit, and this is good for all of you who have suffered violent crime. On a civil lawsuit, there's no Fifth Amendment rights. So if somebody murdered your child or your loved one, file a civil lawsuit. They don't have a right to be silent and ask for however much you want, because it will force them to talk, because they do what's called like depositions, and they call them interrogatories. And both sides are allowed to send hundreds of questions to each other, and they have to be answered. And if they're not answered, then that side loses. So I did file a civil lawsuit against the guy, and I won that. But there was no justice for my brother. And I spent 3 years trying to get justice. I even had like a letter back from the White House and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I just went on and I volunteered and I helped get laws changed, like victims' rights laws. In fact, in Washington State, at the time of my brother's murder, you did not even have a right to give a victim's impact statement. How about that? See, this was in 1991. You didn't have that right. You didn't have a right to say anything. If you think you have rights now, don't have rights now, you should have seen what it was like then. You could, if you wanted, write a letter to the judge, but you didn't have any right to have an expectation the judge would even read it. So I partnered up, and it was the organization that did it. I just spoke for them. I helped them raise money, and I went to Olympia to help the laws get passed and stuff that would give victims' families the right to give a victim impact statement, to say something to this person, to put a public record in court of the way this affected them so that when they go up for parole later, it's still there. Victim impact statements are important. Another law we got passed doesn't involve any more tax money, but it takes money out of criminal fines. And then if you have someone close to you get murdered, a roommate, a boyfriend, a family member, something like that, that would pay for 10 therapist visits for somebody. It's not a whole lot, but these are small gains, but they're huge. That's what I did with the trauma from my brother being murdered. What I did with the trauma from my daughter being murdered, and she was murdered, okay? Because I saw her body. But thank you, Ryan, for trying to push that in on the evening of the anniversary they found my daughter's body. Thank you so much. You've shown everyone what a total, complete backstabber and asshole you really are. Really. Behind that soft speaking, we just want to help. Just buy me a drone. Just buy me an underwater. Yeah, Ryan finds nothing. He found absolutely fucking nothing, and he wants to blame it on me? Really? Maybe he shouldn't have started by pretending his wife was having my clues and then not knowing what to do. It's not her fault. Clearly, she does whatever he wants. And then hanging around with one of the prime suspects. Goodbye, Ryan. Don't ever go to any of my clues again. I have a right to say something. This is just sick. It's sickening. That when I went to yeah. So by the time 5 days later, I didn't even believe them when they said my daughter was dead, for one thing. I just hung up the phone. Oh yeah, because, when we're not wealthy or when we don't do this on an anniversary that's perfect for the media, well, with my daughter, it didn't matter because honestly, from my activism, I was friends with one reporter who had talked to a producer for Dateline, and they did say they would do it, but they also said that to think about it because most people actually hate them after those Dateline things. They hate them. Because they said they have to find the worst stuff to try to sell advertising. That's the way it really works. And after everything I've been through with my brother, and I knew there was no justice, I volunteered for 8 years for a violent crime place, families of murder victims. And I went and changed my business degree to criminal justice. And I volunteered for 8 years, and I sat across from family after family who had had a loved one murdered. And one thing I saw was even the ones that did go to court, which is not most of them, because most of them, the police will say it's something other than murder, because if it's murder and they don't solve it, then they don't get as much grant money from the Department of Justice. That's the way it actually works. I'm not going to edit this video. I'm just going to put it up. This is information all of you should know. If you follow true crime, you really should know the truth about true crime. Most people never get justice. And if you want to call it justice, because really justice would be the death penalty for someone who purposely, knowingly conspires and plans to end the life of your loved one, then the only real justice is them on the death penalty. Almost no one gets that. Almost nobody even gets that person put in prison. Another quick statistic is rape. 1 out of 63 is even prosecuted. Okay? So the criminal justice system is not perfect by any means, but I did spend 8 years volunteering for this organization and sitting across from hundreds of people who had had a loved one murdered. And one thing I learned doing that and helping people navigate through the justice system, because at that time, most police stations didn't have a full-time victims liaison. Like a lot of the bigger cities, they started hiring later. But what I learned was that even when they go to trial, it doesn't usually provide the relief that they hoped for. Most people after the trial end up super depressed because they thought it would make them feel better. And now they're just tired and they've been fighting so long, and now they're just left alone with the grief. And all that relief that they had hoped to get, that they were focused on while they were fighting, it's just not there. It's not there. And yet, it's better than the people who are spending the rest of their life knowing that the person who murdered their child or murdered their brother or murdered their husband or whatever, most of those people are sitting home alone knowing that the murderer is out walking our streets and will never be held accountable, sometimes even mocking them. I'm asking you to unsubscribe to those people who make a mockery of crime. Oh, and one last final thing. So even though Ryan has talked to me multiple times on the phone and he knows my phone number, and if he really had a question, all he would have done is called or emailed, because he's emailed me a bunch of times too. But then when I did go in his comments and I didn't attack back, I didn't label back, I didn't call names back, I didn't do anything but answer questions. Do you know what he did? If you're a YouTube creator and someone's really rude, you can just press the 3 buttons and put hide user from channel, and it instantly blocks out every comment they ever made. And if they look at your channel again, they think their comments are still there, but nobody else can see their comments. So that's what he did to me. I know, because I checked on my friends, because I thought, oh, starting Thanksgiving night, there's no new replies to anything I say. So I looked under my friend's profile and it wasn't there. Now, I also know that the people who were supporting me, he also did that to them too. So he left a couple up so it wouldn't seem like too much. But you see, after he uploaded his belly aching, drama king BS, after he did that, 90% of the comments were in my favor and telling him that he was way out of line. Okay. He went through all those comments and he did the 3 dots, hide from channel. Yeah. So not only does he not have real questions for me because he could have called me, he's blocking people from actually seeing the answers, and he's blocking the rest of his viewers from knowing that they don't appreciate his smears, defamation of character, and lies, frankly. It's not up to him, who can't understand clues, to judge me or say, I mean, it's like I don't even think I've talked to the guy in like a couple of years. And yet I'm the source of his problems and his inability to do anything at all other than garnish money from people and hang around with a prime suspect. And why would he care so much if I talk to Fred Hill? Why is that such a problem? Because I'll tell you, when someone makes that big of a deal out of who I talk to, you know I'm going to be talking a whole lot more. All right? That's my reply to big boy, big, whiny, baby-faced, lying sack of shit. For real. Yeah, and I am a reverend. You know what? I'm not two different people. I don't go like this, act all nice, and then get in my car and act all pissed. I'm one person. And what Ryan did was intolerable. I expected a little bit more out of some of these dysfunctional SOs that are surrounding this case. I mean, they're noise in my mind. I don't care. They can sit there every night, talk about me for hours and hours and hours. Doesn't matter to me. I already know what they are. Ryan presented himself as something different, though. I'm the respectable one. I'm the one trying to make a difference. No, Brian, a lot of us have tried to make a difference. Okay, but in the end, you're not. In the end, you're a lying sack of crap who has no morals whatsoever and who would try to hurt somebody whose body was found on Thanksgiving Day. And you know what? It wouldn't matter to me if she committed suicide or was murdered. It wouldn't matter. The cause of death, I already knew. My daughter was not coming back. Okay? She wasn't coming back. That was what mattered. But the evidence points to murder. And she didn't put those bruises on her own legs. Okay? She didn't put those bruises on her own backs of her hands. She didn't put the bruises on her chest or her back. She didn't put the bruise by her eye. The screaming, the man threw her in the pool. It was that freaking obvious. Okay? Oh, and some guy who went to prison wrote me a letter all about it too. It's really gross. Real gross. It's as gross as some of my readings. It's really gross. That guy wrote me that stuff about what happened that night. So you know what? You're not going to stop me, Brian. Because I am strong in the belief of God. I know God is real. Whether I swear or not, whether I'm perfect or not, it doesn't matter. God is real. And my work, the most important thing about my work is proving the afterlife. All right? God uses us wherever we are. So I have a criminal justice degree. I have some experience with that. I've had family members murdered. So God, that's the way God's using. That's what God's bringing me. I'm serving God. I am not serving you, you fucking asshole. You fucking prick. Stay the fuck off my YouTube channel. Do not search anything I say because you don't know what you're doing anyway. You're just making content to raise money. All right? Let's call it what it is. That's all you're doing. You used my name a whole bunch at the beginning, right? And now you're trying to go back around circle to smear me and defame me after I platformed your channel. What an asshole. And it's like, oh, nice guy. No. Do you know how many sex offenders are baby-faced, innocent-looking people? I want to tell you about one. When I was working at juvenile parole, I'm only laughing because I was never going to address this, but I'm addressing it, and I'm going to leave it in there. When I was working at juvenile parole, there was one, he was someone else's client, but sometimes we would go visit them together just for safety. Now, this guy was like 6 feet tall. He looked like GQ magazine cover, really good looking. He was a straight A student. He had a really pretty girlfriend. He had a good social group of popular kids. And he AR'd a 4-year-old until the kid was 8 years old. So for 4 years. And he had passed 5 different lie detector tests. He had passed 5 different lie detector tests, this guy. So I asked my supervisor, can I go interview him? Because I really want to find out how this guy passed these lie detector tests, right? How he tricked everybody. First of all, he tricked him because he was good looking. He tricked him because in the movies that we watch and the TV shows, the bad guy looks creepy and scary. In real life, the bad guy can look like Ryan. In real life, the bad guy can look like Nate Eaton, who lied to the world while him and his Freemasonry church, which is called the Mormon Church, controlled this story and put out a false narrative, okay? That's real life. You don't know who's good and bad by looking at their little baby face. Ryan just showed his true colors. He really did. Okay, so anyway, so I go to the county jail, right? And they bring the guy out. So he's in his jail clothes and all that. And I'm like, you know, you're good looking, you're popular, you have a beautiful girlfriend, straight A's, your future was in front of you. Like, what are you doing? What's going on? Why did you do all this? And he said, so he had already been in the state institution. So this is parole, not probation. This guy had already been in the state institution and served time for the same exact offense. And then he came out and he found another victim. And when the boy was 8, he told. So for 4 years, he had this kid too terrified to talk. And I said, why would you do this? You have all these other things. Your life is like perfect. You know, you're even good looking even. And he said that he liked the feeling of power it gave him. So if he ever had a problem, say he didn't do as good on a test, or him and his girlfriend got in a fight, or, you know, someone cuts him off in traffic and he's stressed and he's feeling powerless, or he's feeling like the world is stressful. Well, he goes and harms this little boy, destroys this little boy's energy field and his mind and every other thing. And he walks away feeling good. This is the mind of an SO. He actually felt good harming another person. So think about that next time you watch one of these YouTubers who are criminals talking about me. That actually makes them, they get off on it, on their perceived attempt to harm somebody. And that's where Ryan got his information. So we know now that there's nothing about him that's dependable at all. It's all a farce. That's what we know now about him. But about the sex offender I was interviewing, yeah, that's what he told me. Got a feeling of power off it. It's not just about the sexual pleasure of it. It's about destroying the child and feeling good. That makes him feel good. So the next question I had for the SO was, how did you pass the lie detector test? Well, the reason they don't allow lie detector tests in court is because the only thing they test is your stress level. If 1 out of 5 people is a sociopath, meaning they don't have the part of their brain that triggers adrenaline when they do things that society thinks are wrong, they don't even have that. So they do whatever they want. And then they learn to mimic others to put on a good front. And that's what some of these real sick Freemasons do as well. Okay, so they're grooming them. And even corporations, they're grooming the psychopaths to run the place. And we're now facing a world run by psychopaths, right? But when we go back to this one kid, this one young man, and this one was about 20 by then, because the crime could have been committed between 12 and 18, but then we might monitor them till they're 25. So when I call them kid, it's because I'm way, way older. But so lie detector tests only measure your stress level. That's it. If you're a sociopath, no problem. This guy was a sociopath. And I said, how did you pass the test? 5 times, 5 tests you passed. And he said every time they ask him a question, like, did you do this to this kid? He would ask himself a different question. Did I eat a burrito last night? No. And he would actually consciously answer his own question. He said it was easy peasy to pass 5 lie detector tests. They mean close to nothing. We used to have the man that comes in. He used to come in a couple days a month to do lie detector tests. And then like on a lottery system, we'd have different kids, or if we suspected something, they'd have different kids take the lie detector test. The only value of a lie detector test is once they start strapping someone up and the person starts panicking, they start wanting to explain themselves and they start divulging information. That is literally, so when cops say, will you take a lie detector test? They're just trying to see someone's reaction. The information is not even usable. If someone took a Valium and then went there, like I heard Candus couldn't even have a lie detector test the first time because she'd taken things. You know, I don't know if that's true or not, because the gossipy part of this thing about Summer Wells, I haven't paid as much attention to. So I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard. The other thing is, if you remember the case of Evelyn Boswell, who either killed or helped to kill her own child, she was telling the media that she passed the lie detector test, and that was the same state in Tennessee. They didn't come out and correct her. It didn't come out until court or way after she was arrested that she had not passed it. But she was just saying that. So it doesn't really matter what suspects say, whether it is social media or to mainstream media. The police are not going to correct it. They're just focusing on their own investigation. So I'm going to put that to the side, and I'm going to particularly invite the Beast, Ryan, the Beast with the baby face, drama king, whiner, to please stay off my channel. Don't look at my readings. Don't pretend you're following them when you're walking on trails. And if you do follow them and you find something, after you call the police, you make sure to let them know it wasn't your wife. Okay? All right. So your little fraudulent bullshit you got going on over there, I'm not having it. Okay, enough with that. Now we're going to talk about summer again. So it looks like on the particular day, oh, and by the way, yeah, I have like 30 or 40 of these. And I'm sure I need to on Monday, unless I can get donations or something to help fund somebody to help me go through these. I have to go back and work on something else. I have no choice. I'll keep chipping away at this. But again, just remember, when you listen to clues or you listen to the readings I did put up, oh, but I'm going to do a series with Fred Hill. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do, Ryan. Okay? You can't tell me what to do. You can't try to disgrace me and discredit me and call me a fraud. Like, what the fuck? Are you fucking kidding me? You want to talk about fraud? Fraud is walking around using my readings and pretending they're your wife's. That's fraud. Okay? Just FYI. Anyways, some clues go to Summer's life before she was disappeared. Some clues go to the decision-making process about her life. Some go to the showing of Summer. Some go to the transfer part 1. Some go to the transfer part 2. Some go to where Summer arrived at, where she was put in the wooden box. Some go to the night she was brought to the lodge. Some go to the brick house. And some go to the remains. Okay? And then from there, there's multiple suspects. There's a whole string of people who abused Summer. And I know who some of them are, and maybe that's why I seem angry. Really? Yeah, I'm angry. I'm angry when neighbors who sit there on YouTube for 3 years straight talking about how their husband knowingly provided the drugs for these kids to be sedated, to be assaulted, comes on my live stream and starts yelling and swearing at me. I'm angry when Ryan Finds Truth comes into my live stream with Andy Bernard and tries to overturn it. Clearly, they did not know that it was pre-recorded, as Andy sat there trying to threaten Fred the whole time, but it was Fred couldn't even hear him because we'd recorded it earlier in the day. And where Ryan wouldn't shut up for at least an hour, kept trying to interrupt the whole thing and this and that, type in capital letters and try to cause, like, I platformed the guy. Could you imagine someone stabbing you in the back like that? That's why on the next one, when I was mad after Jody Sue did her thing, and when I just called them all out and I said, Ryan finds nothing. So for that, now he's going to escalate again and make a 2-hour smear video about me. How much money have you made in the last 3 years going on walks in public parks, on trails, and pretending you were looking for Summer? That's just a question. Just a question. Don't ever talk about me again. Don't ever look on my channel again. Don't ever pretend you're following my leads again, okay? If anybody else is in Tennessee, you can contact me. I can try to help you. I don't even know if I feel like doing this. I'm just going to tell you something. I don't think I owe anybody anything. I've been giving my time to this for 5 years. I've been spending my own money trying to survive. I've been spending all my extra money trying to take this off the ground. I'm good at what I do, and I know it. And I'll just say this. The reading that I was going to share with you today has a lot of Masonic imagery. What I think I'll do is I'm just going to upload this and then I'm going to ask you not to give Ryan any more money. Definitely don't give it to all those drug addicts who circle this case. Almost all of them are sex offenders, or they have a close family member that's a registered sex offender. And, you know, it's all hanky-panky around there. And almost all of them are criminals and drug addicts. And they are making money for their drug habits by insulting other people. And if you really think about it, it's not funny. It really isn't. And if one of them particularly was court ordered to take psych meds and court ordered not even to be on YouTube, but he makes nightly videos about me, like, don't you think that's a little weird? And yeah, I did talk to his probation officer, Miss Ann. If you've ever noticed that too, just go down in the post. Her contact info is there. So anyway, yeah, that's my response to Ryan Finds Nothing. And he's the one who deserved to be called that because he tried to destroy my live stream prior to me calling him that. And now he wants to up the ante by spending 2 hours spouting lies about me that he gets from a drug addict. Like, he's gone down the slippery slope. So that's my response video. Have a great day. Yeah, I have at least 30 or 4 more readings on Summer, and they are more and more detailed all the time. That's true. Now, here's what I'm going to ask you. If you think my work is valuable, please join as a member. In fact, maybe I'll make the readings membership only. Or I'll put some ways that you can donate and help this channel. You can help support my work so I can go to places and find the places in my vision and make a difference. That's what I'm asking from you. I'm just feeling kind of sad at being attacked all the time. And so I think I'm not going to go any further today.